So 12 divided by 28, whatever comes, is the mole ratio of nitrogen given to that 3 moles of hydrogen. The balance equation ratio is 1 mole of nitrogen to 3 moles of hydrogen gas. And the given ratio is 12 over 28. I don't have a calculator. You can do it. Divide it, moles of nitrogen ratio with 3 moles, again the same, of hydrogen. Obviously, nitrogen gas, I think my mental math says, will be the limiting reactant because its ratio is 12 divided by 28 is not 1. So it's lesser than its stoichiometric ratio given 1 mole of nitrogen according to balance equation completely reacts with 3 moles. So here the given ratio, the given amount of nitrogen is lesser than 1 mole, but the given amount of hydrogen is again 3 moles. So you can say with this reaction and with the explanation that nitrogen is a limiting reactant. Now the second part says, how much more is required of the limiting reactant to react completely with the excess reactant? Now the excess reactant was the hydrogen. How much was it excess? Not all 3 moles. The one which was left after reacting with 12 over 28 moles of nitrogen. Those were the excess. So I think smart students who are good at maths can do in different ways to know how much more nitrogen was required. Either you can just do the stoichiometric calculation with limiting reactant. You'll say 1 mole of nitrogen requires 3 moles of hydrogen according to balance equation. 12 or 28 grams of nitrogen requires X grams of hydrogen. So once you come to know the amount moles of hydrogen gas uh, required, they will be lesser than 3 moles given. You will subtract them. From 3 moles, you will come to know how much the excess reactant was there. Well, and then on that basis, you can carry the reaction on the excess reactant, that is hydrogen, long calculation. Or you can be smart enough, you'll say 1 mole of nitrogen reacts with 3 moles of hydrogen. So again, 3 moles of nitrogen would react with 1 mole, but the moles given are how much? 12 over 28. So against the lesser number of moles, when you come to know how much nitrogen is less, against that how much hydrogen will be required, you can do again stoichiometric calculation, and you'll come to know how much more how much more nitrogen was required to react with the excess one. I hope you have understood. Since I don't have a whiteboard, or um, you can go directly to the calculation or indirectly. My third part says how many moles of ammonia are produced. Ammonia is the product. Now, in a calculation which is giving you limiting and excess reactant options, you will always calculate the amount of the product with the limiting reactant, not with the excess. Very important rule. So you will say 12 or 28 moles of nitrogen reacts, the stoichiometric amount is 1 mole of nitrogen reacts with 3 moles of hydrogen. 12 or 28 moles of nitrogen would react with X moles of, I'm again sorry, please excuse me. 1 mole of nitrogen reacts with gives us 1 mole of ammonia, 2 moles of ammonia according to balance equation. I'm sorry. Once again, sorry, because the equation is front of you. I have to relate it with the product, not with the reactant. I'm repeating the first two parts by mistake. So 1 mole of nitrogen according to balance equation gave us 2 moles of ammonia gas. 12 over 28 moles of nitrogen would give us X moles of ammonia gas. And when you cross multiply, you come to know how many moles of ammonia are produced. The concept which I'm focusing is, whenever you have to find the amount moles of the product or the grams of the product, whatever unit, always set up a ratio with the limiting reactant, not with the excess. I hope you understood the concept. Now coming to question number 2, which is very simple, which says calculate the percentage yield of ammonia. Calculate the percentage yield of ammonia if 17 gram of it is formed which is the given amount formed when 6 gram of hydrogen reacts with excess nitrogen. Here the formula for percentage yield, my dear student, recall, is percentage yield is equal to experimental value amount, which I have given you 17 gram, divided by the theoretical value of the product ammonia. So when you have to find the percentage yield, you will plug in the values. You'll say percentage yield is equal to 17 gram. Always use the unit of grams, not moles, for percentage yield. Now divide by the theoretical value of nitrogen to be formed. How would you find that? By simple stoichiometry. So it means again you will be writing the equation which you have already written, which says N2 plus 3H2 giving us 2NH3. Now here you have to relate the or develop a ratio between hydrogen and ammonia. According to Balance equation in grams, 28 grams of nitrogen exactly give us how much? 34, if I'm correct, mental maths, 17 multiplied by 2, 34. Yes, 34 grams of ammonia. Therefore, 6 grams of hydrogen will give us X grams of ammonia. Right? According to Balance equation, we have to set up a ratio between hydrogen and ammonia. Sorry. So 2 grams of ammonia gave us 28 grams of nitrogen. 6 grams of hydrogen will give us X grams of ammonia. When you get the answer, that is the theoretical value. So you divide the 17 by theoretical value in grams of ammonia by the stoichiometry you have calculated and get the answer. I'll ask you questions. You can ask me questions. Azan is on, so a break of 2 minutes or 1 minute, please. If you have a question, please, over this homework, raise your hand and ask me. One of you come. Please, if you have a question, I'm unmuting. On the homework which I have discussed, any question, please ask me. Maybe I have left some gap and now I have warmed up. So if any error, please raise your hand if you have any question on question 1 and 2 before I go to my today's explanation and topics. Any question? Yes, my dear Aman Beg. Yes, Aman Beg, ask me.
In question 1 part 3,
Ji,
we
Janab.
have to do it with reference to the first part or the second
Can you
part?
be loud? Your voice is not clear.
Miss, in question 1 part 3, Miss, do we have to do it with reference
Part
to
3?
part 1 or part 2?
Question 1 and part 3. Can you be louder because your voice is very less?
Miss,
See, your
in
mic is
question
okay.
1, Miss, is it hearable now?
Question 1, part 3. You want me to explain it again?
Miss, I'm just asking which reference will we take? Will we take part 1 as a reference or a part 2?
No, I still have not. Your voice is so low that I can hardly hear anything. What I deduce that you're asking me that in part 3, when we are doing stoichiometry, what we will take, part 1 or part 2 you're talking, you always calculate
Yes,
the
miss.
amount of the product with the help of the limiting reactant.
Okay, miss.
That is, I repeat how to handle part 3 if you can understand. That is, you'll set up stoichiometry, you'll write a balance equation, you'll set up a ratio between the limiting reactant, which is nitrogen, and against nitrogen, which is the given amount of nitrogen is 12 grams over 28 grams. You ratio it with X grams of ammonia. Now, please, anyone else? I hope Aman Beg, actually my assistant was not around, so I couldn't handle the computer. If you want to ask me again, you can ask it. Aman Beg, is it clear? Raise your hand. I don't know, was this?
Yes, miss, it is clear.
Yes, miss. Okay, because your voice is so low that it hardly can be heard. I think correct your mic or somewhere. So my computer is working okay. Anyone else, or should I move ahead with the today's? Anyone else? Any question? Please do lot of practice of chemical calculations. It's simple with simple rules. Okay, now I move to today's lecture and explanations. Focus. We are starting water, the second part of section 10, air and water. We have done with air. And today's GCR homework will be to prepare all the topics of air for Friday when we meet. Now today we start with water. And please focus because you don't have a chapter of water in Chemistry Matters, the textbook, but other textbooks have this chapter. So I have tried my level best to cover 100%, if not 99%, if not 100% of the syllabus. So the first point is, when we talk of water, the formula, obviously you know H2O. On the slide, I think you all can see the slide. Anyone please raise your hand. The slide is there on the computer. Just raise one. Okay, thank you. The formula of water, if there's any error in the English language by preposition, because you know quickly it was typed and I was speaking the points to remember. The formula of water is H2O, you all know. Remember, don't only learn the formula surfacely, but handle it also quantitatively. This is the first fundamentals of chemistry 9O level. So quantitatively, if I look at the formula, it shows 2 atoms of hydrogen combines with 1 atom of oxygen. Simplest quantitative ratio in terms of atoms, not in terms of molecules. Remember, in the molecule, there can't be molecules. So sometimes students says the formula of water contain 1 mole of 2 moles, one molecule of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen. No, that's incorrect explanation. 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen. If you're asked to read it in moles, you will say that formula of water contains 2 moles of hydrogen atoms and 1 mole of oxygen atom. Remember my point, which I repeat in the class, and I'm repeating for you all, that formula of any substance, may it be molecule, compound, ion, represent only 1 mole or 1 molecule or 1 formula unit. Now I'm talking in terms of moles. So 1 mole of water contains 2 moles of hydrogen atom and 1 mole of oxygen atom. Sometimes student says 1 molecule of water contains 2 moles of hydrogen atom and 1 mole of oxygen atom. Young man, what a big error. When you are reading the formula in terms of molecule, you read its component elements also in terms of atoms. But when you read the formula in terms of mole, you read the quantity of the component elements in moles. So I'm repeating, very important fact. Class 9 level teacher must have explained it repeatedly. If not, I'm doing the job. 1 mole of water contains 2 moles of hydrogen atoms and 1 mole of oxygen atom. But if you say 1 molecule of water, then you will say it contains 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. I hope you understand. This is for the students who still have problem and shy to ask. These are the fundamentals of chemistry. So this is the best time for me to repeat. The formula of water, H2O, as it says in the point, contains hydrogen and oxygen atoms which are covalently bonded by each other. Now my young friends know the definition of covalent bond. And that is when atoms of element complete their outer shell, either duplet for hydrogen, mostly octet, by sharing or by transferring electrons. So covalent bond is formed by sharing electrons, right? And it has an angular structure. When you study the structure of water, it's not linear like carbon dioxide. It's angular, and the bond angle, if I'm correct, if I'm not mixing it with ammonia, it's 109 or 104. So please check from the textbook. So that's why I have not written in my notes also. Because when it just flicked out of my mind and I didn't open the textbook because I was mixing it with ammonia. You know, it's human error. So please check it, but it's angular. It's not linear structure. So this is the basic information you should have about water when it comes in front of you, its formula or its name. Now, if you look at the second point, still many of you, or many of you not, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but I'm assuming that many of you do not know the meaning of the term solvent and solute. Here I am going to focus. Solvent is that part of the solution. When we talk of solute and solvent, we are talking of homogeneous mixture. That is a mixture in which the components are uniformly mixed into each other, and such a homogeneous mixture is called solution. There are two components of solution. One is solvent, other is solute. No chemical is born solvent and no chemical is born solute. So don't do this injustice, philosophy, to any chemical. Any chemical present in largest amount in a solution will be classified as solvent, and the one which are present in lesser amount, maybe one substance or more than one substance, they will be classified as solutes. So those students who already knew, they must be laughing at me. Look, Ms. Siddiqui is taking us to basics, far away from the topic of 11 O level, which is moving ahead. But some of you will be praying for me. What a nice teacher. She's, without asking us, she's defining the term solute and solvent. Yes, Musa Rehman, my dear, any question?
मिस जो आपने थर्ड
अच्छा बोलिए कि जनाब,
लिखा है, मिस आपने थर्ड का जो पहला पॉइंट लिखा है पोलैरिटी इन द मॉलिक्यूल में,
अच्छा बोलिए बेटा, क्लियर नहीं है आपकी आवाज, मफल्ड है।
मिस कह रहा हूँ जो आपने थर्ड पॉइंट का पहला लिखा हुआ है पोलैरिटी इन द मॉलिक्यूल में, ये तो
मैं आ रही हूँ, मैं उस पे आ रही हूँ, बस आई एम सॉरी।
तो ए लेवल्स का नहीं है
जी
मिस, ये ए लेवल्स का नहीं है
बेटा, नहीं ए लेवल का नहीं है, आपको ये कॉन्सेप्ट्स आने चाहिए ओ लेवल में, ठीक है?
टीचर ने बताया ए लेवल्स में पढ़ते हैं।
अच्छा चले, नहीं ओ लेवल में भी पढ़ते हैं आप, अगर आप सुनिए जरा, ए लेवल में तो ओ लेवल में जो पढ़ा है ना, इसको ए लेवल में और एग्जेजुरेट फॉर्म में पढ़ोगे, तो बेसिक्स अपनी ठीक करके जाओ। अच्छा जी जनाब मूसा बेटा, ओके माय डियर स्टूडेंट्स, सो आई सेड वाटर इज अ यूनिवर्सल सॉल्वेंट, बाय दैट it means that it dissolves little bit of every substance in it. It dissolves more substances than any other solvent. Other solvent, you can ask me, Musa. I know I'm moving slow for everyone, not for Musa only, my dear. So I know you get little irritated. You have gone to point 3. Point 3 is very much a part of your syllabus. Okay, that's why I want you all to take A stars. Now, when water is a good solvent because it can dissolve a little bit of every substance in it. There are other liquids which can behave, or other solids which can behave as solvent in an alloy, which is a mixture of solid solutes and solvents. So the one substance which is present in largest amount, as in steel, iron is the solvent, Musa, and especially I'm asking for Musa who asked, and iron is a solvent and carbon is a solute in steel, which is present in smaller amount, no matter its physical state is solid. So water is a universal solvent as it can dissolve more substance than any other chemical or any other solvent. Why is it so? The point 3 explains. Please focus. Water dissolves other substances in it due to its number one, polarity in the molecule, very important. Polarity, if not clear, I'm going to make it very clear to all students because many of you have not taught in 9th, but those who have taught in 10th, they already know that I have explained this term and it's a part of your O-level syllabus. And the second point that substances dissolve in water is the structure similarity. Now my point number 4 will explain what does polarity mean. Focus on point number 4, please. Water, you know, is H2O with a covalent bond between hydrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen, oxygen. Two covalent bonds are present in it. Oxygen is forming covalent bond with two hydrogen atoms separately. Now, before you read point 4, I just want to explain you when a pair of electron which is shared between two atoms is not equally shared, we call that covalent bond polar covalent bond. And if it is equally shared by the two participants, the pair of electron or electrons, we call it non-polar covalent bond. Now, in water, oxygen. Now, this is all O-level knowledge. If you have not been taught in 9th and 10th, sorry. So please study today. Now, according to our knowledge, basic knowledge, we know that oxygen is the second most electronegative element in the periodic table. Why? Because oxygen has greater ability to attract electron in its outer shell from others than any other non-metal except fluorine, which is the most electronegative element in the periodic table. So hydrogen, which is also a non-metal, it will also attract electron, shared electron, but very less compared to oxygen. So the shared pair of electron present between hydrogen and oxygen in the covalent bond present in water will be more tilted or attracted towards oxygen, creating a partial negative charge. I haven't given the sign for that. Delta negative is the sign. If you can put, and if you recall in the books also, and your teachers must have taught, I have taught my class 10th. Partial negative charge rests on oxygen atom and partial positive charge due to less electronegativity of hydrogen on either side of oxygen will rest on hydrogen atoms, making the structure polar. So water is a polar compound, and this is also responsible for it to dissolve most of the ionic compounds or polar covalent solutes in it. This is one reason. And if you read point 4, it says water has a polar structure because the covalent bonds present between hydrogen and oxygen atoms are polar. I've explained that. That is, electron pair shared between hydrogen atom and oxygen atom is more attracted to oxygen atom as it is more electronegative. This creates a partial positive charge on hydrogen atoms and a partial, which is depicted by a delta or sign, negative charge on oxygen atom, not clear-cut negative and positive. Due to this polarity, अब ये polarity create हो गई है, my dear students, the polar substance and most of the ionic compounds can dissolve in water. Because the rule is, which I have not written in my points to remember, you can remember it, like, dissolve and like. यानी एक जैसी चीजें आपस में ज्यादा भाईचारा रखती हैं और डिसॉल्व हो जाती हैं एक दूसरे में. I hope my dear Musa has understood the question. And beta, everything you study in grade 1, it will be carried forward in an exaggerated form when you move to higher grades. So polarity is a basic concept of O level, which will go into detail where you measure its degree, which covalent bond is more polar than the other. This will be all in details in A level and FSC, inshallah. Now, if you look at the second point, that is water dissolves substances in it because of its structure similarity with the other substances which are solutes. And the reason I gave you is the OH group present in water. Water, if you read the structure of water, it's HOH. So OH group is present in water. You will study organic chemistry, inshallah, in the next leg, which is section 11, the last section. Hopefully, prayerfully, I wish I could teach you in life, and maybe we get a chance to study organic chemistry in life. That is when the school reopens partially or whatever. The government is trying. Let's see, you are well aware. So the OH group present in certain compounds like alcohols and sugars, simple sugars, make it possible for water, for these substances to dissolve in water. Not that they are polar. The covalent bond present between them is not polar. The presence of OH group in them. You'll study the structures of these compounds, simple sugars and alcohols like ethanol, C2H5OH. Simple sugars, if you study their structure, you'll see there's a OH group. It becomes soluble in water, and then their solubility decreases according to alkyl group, which you will study later. So there are two main reasons for substances to be more soluble in water, making water as a universal solvent. Other than that, gases, especially those which ionize in water, like ammonia and HCl, they break down into ions, are highly soluble in water. So much so that 1 cm cube of ammonia gas can dissolve, if I of ammonia gas, 400 cm cube of ammonia gas can dissolve in 1 cm cube of water. See how highly soluble this gas in water is, because it ionizes in water, and water is also polar covalent compound, so great solubility. But some gases like hydrogen or oxygen or nitrogen are sparingly soluble in water. That is very less. They are non-polar, they don't ionize, but under certain conditions, that is low temperature and under pressure, they become soluble in water. And you all know that the solubility of gases in water decreases with increase of temperature. So young friends, I have discussed point 1 to 5. Now I unmute you and you can ask me any question which you have not understood. Please raise your hand. Any part of first 5 points. Yes, Abdullah Iqbal, Ji Janab. Yes, it is Abdullah Akil.
Miss, I didn't understand the point number 5.
Okay, point number 5 you didn't understand. बेटा
जी,
पानी का स्ट्रक्चर का फार्मूला देखें, HOH है ना, it's HOH. You agree
जी,
with
miss.
that?
Yes.
Okay. हाँ जी, very good. Say keep saying yes, little. So HOH means that water has H, and if I divide the structure into H and OH, you can say with confidence that it has OH group in it.
Yes.
Right? OH, okay. So
Yes.
any other compound such as alcohols, you will study about them very soon in last section, and simple sugars like glucose, sucrose, they also have OH groups in their structures, right?
Yes.
So when there's similarity between the two chemicals, they become good friends.
Yes.
I'm talking in your common language. It means they can dissolve into each other.
Yes,
Is
miss.
it clear? So
Yes.
one of the reasons for water to be, my dear Abdullah Akil, to be a universal solvent, universal का मतलब कि सब कुछ थोड़ा बहुत dissolve कर लेता है यार, शुक्र है हमें
जी,
नहीं
miss.
करता तो हम, है ना जी, तो उसमें
जी,
ये भी
miss.
reason है. ठीक है, my dear Abdullah Akil, understand?
Yes, miss.
Okay, good. Any other student? Janab, raise your hand if anyone has a question. Any student has a, Abdul Rafi, you have a question, my dear? First 5 points.
थोड़ा सा एक्सप्लेन कर दें
जी?
पोलैरिटी का
ओके एक दफा ओके मैं कॉन्सेप्ट क्लियर कर रही हूँ अब वहां से सुना है आपने ओके राइट नाउ फर्स्ट फोकस ऑन कोवेलेंट बॉन्ड I'm going like moving on a staircase. That is concept building. First, focus on the term covalent bond. What comes in your mind? Answer: at least one electron pair. One electron pair means two electrons shared between two non-metals. Agreed? Now, for example, a simple analogy I'm going to give. For example, if you have one car and I have one car, you share my car and I share your car beside using our own. This will make us Malik of two cars each. You got the concept of sharing? Sharing always increases the possession. Now, for example, if I become an aggressor and I share your car more than you share my car, which is, in other words, a pair of electrons, it means that I'll be using two cars more than you'll be using two cars, right? Likewise, my dear concept is when a bond, covalent bond is formed between two atoms which have different electronegativities. Now the question arises, what is electronegativity, Mr. Siddiqui? My answer would be, electronegativity is the ability of an atom, of an element, to pull the shared pair of electron towards itself, because it loves electron more than the other. All the elements in the periodic table has electronegativity values. The metals have very less value because they love to give away the electron. The non-metals have higher En value, that is electronegative value, and it's a specific value for each element. So according to the knowledge, oxygen is more electronegative than hydrogen. It means it will attract the shared pair of electron more towards it, not transfer. If it does so, it will become an ionic bond. No, वो मैंने जो मिसाल दी है गाड़ियों की, वो अपनी तरफ खींचेगा पेयर ऑफ इलेक्ट्रॉन. जब अपनी तरफ खींचेगा, और you know that electron is a negative cloud, तो वो उस एलिमेंट के ऊपर पार्शियल नेगेटिव, पार्शियल मींस आधा, जिसका डेल्टा का साइन देते हैं, गैमा का जो होता है ना हाफ 8, partial negative sign oxygen पे आ जाएगा and partial positive sign on the hydrogen atom. Both way, both hydrogen atom will have partial positive charge and oxygen will have partial negative. So a polarity means मुख्तलिफ दो पोल क्रिएट हो गए ना, पॉजिटिव नेगेटिव, पार्शियल हुए, कंप्लीट नहीं हुए, जैसे कि आयनिक बॉन्ड्स में होते हैं. So what will happen? This is called polarity. So if you are asked to define polarity, you'll say polarity is created when the pair of electron is not shared equally, creating a partial positive and negative charge on the bonded atoms. And this concept, when takes place, we call it polarity, and the structure become polar. I hope my dear Abdullah Akil, raise your hand. Abdul Rafi, sorry. Raise your hand if you have understood the concept of polarity now.
Yes, miss.
Abdul Rafi? Abdul Rafi understood? Raise your hand. Abdul Rafi, you asked me.
नहीं आ रहा, but miss, I have understood it.
समझ आ गया बेटा. Good. Now let me move to point number 6. Very straightforward. That will be a substance can be. Now this is a very important point because MCQs बड़ा आता है, और बच्चों वाला पॉइंट है. वो कहते हैं एक जो कोई भी सब्सटेंस, यानी कोई भी केमिकल, may it be water, may it be sulfuric acid, may it be your sophisticated platinum, or any other element or substance or chemical, can be identified, that is, can be sorted out as a pure substance. If it is pure, by pure I mean a substance which is present all alone, on the basis of their physical properties, such as melting point, boiling point, density, etc. Therefore, any solid in the world, if melts at 0 degrees Celsius, with closed eyes you can say it's water. And if a liquid, any liquid in the world, if it is in pure state, that is all alone, not mixed with any other impurity or any other substance. Impurity means other substances. Boils at 100, we call it water. MCQ, width of the physical property determines that the colorless liquid is water. they'll give you 4 physical properties. The one which help in identifying a substance to be pure and to be water, because water is our topic, not sulfuric acid. So we are not dealing with the boiling point of pure sulfuric acid or its melting point. If it is a 0 degrees Celsius melting point in solid state, and if it is 100 degrees Celsius in liquid state, we call it water. Very straightforward, but concept. Now, point 7, if you want to show the presence of water in pure form, that is all alone distilled water, which is called, or in the form of a mixture such as saliva or any other mixture of water, may be heterogeneous or homogeneous, can be identified by the following 2 very common tests, which you all know and you have performed in the laboratory. I'm just in class 9th, you must have done, and I have given you the word equation. Please focus on them. Anhydrous copper 2 sulfate. Anhydrous means not carrying water of crystallization, which changes color from white to blue in the presence of water if few drops are added. I've given you the word equation as well as formula. Anhydrous copper 2 sulfate plus water giving us hydrous copper 2 sulfate. The formula equation is CuSO4 solid. My dear student, S is small, so don't, if by mistake, if I've written S capital in the bracket, it is small s, but it is capital, but you write in a small, in the next. So CuSO4 solid plus 5H2O, that is balancing the equation, and water is in the form of liquid, not E but L. So by mistake in bracket I have put liquid, so it is L. I'm correcting it, small this. I'm writing the state symbols also along with the formulas, and will give us CuSO4.5H2O, and this will change its color from white to blue, and the physical state of hydrated copper 2 sulfate or hydrous copper 2 sulfate will be solid, because we have added few drops of the mixture which contain water. Now next, please, the next equation is if you roll up the screen, the next test is anhydrous cobalt 2 chloride. I think I missed chloride, so it is anhydrous cobalt 2 chloride. I think by mistake I have missed in typing the word chloride. No, this is okay. CHLORIDE before changes. CHLORIDE. Anhydrous cobalt 2 chloride changes color from blue to pink in the presence of water, few drops. Again, I have given you the word equation, which states anhydrous cobalt 2 chloride plus water giving us hydrated cobalt 2 chloride from blue to pink. The formula equation is COCl2. So the subscripts, I'm going to add it. The formula is COCl2, cobalt 2 chloride. It's a transition metal compound, my dear. If you take it in solid state, which is blue in color, when you add water, a few drops, it becomes pink. And the formula of hydrated cobalt 2 chloride is COCl2 dot, means the water of crystallization attached with it, 6H2O. I hope you appreciate these equations. Now the 8th point. So I don't think there'll be any question from you all, because you have done this in class 9th also, that how to identify water with a chemical test. These 2 tests you have performed in class 9 as well as in class 10. I've done the corrections on the screen. My assistant has done. Now coming to point 8, very important again, but again it's a repetition of, there are some experiments given in the book which you can go through, but not a part of your syllabus as such. How to determine the composition of water. So my dear students who have the basic concept of the term composition, very good. Otherwise I'll tell you, when you're asked to determine the composition of water or any chemical, you should know the component elements present in that substance whose composition is we are referring, and their amounts. You know water formula is H2O, and we have discussed its composition earlier. Now how to determine it? By volume, that is, it contains 2 volumes of hydrogen gas and 1 volume of oxygen gas can be proved by electrolysis of acidified water. If you remember electrolysis, dilute H2SO4. And if you go through the half equations, please do that at home. You'll see that it will yield hydrogen and oxygen in the ratio of 2:1 volume. So those students who know electrolysis, otherwise during in future I'll be revising the section 4 of electrolysis with you all. So that if an exam question comes of 2 marks, how would you determine the composition of water by volume? You can say we can determine it with the help of electrolysis of acidified water, where at anode oxygen gas will be formed in 1 volume and hydrogen will be formed at cathode by 2 volumes. May the volumes be read in cm cube or dm cube. Yes. So young friends, now I'm coming to point number 9. And okay, only 8 points. So I'll unmute you. If you have any question related to what I have explained, please ask me. My notes are self-sufficient. Do read them again and again and make a part-time. Any question, please raise your hand. Any question from point 1 to 8? Because today only 8 points I'm discussing about water. Friday, don't miss the class because very important things I'm going to discuss about water. Anyone please want to ask me a question? From 1 to 8? No? Now, those students who are present right now, I have a very important question other than this chemistry to discuss with you. So you raise your hand. Almost more than 1 month we have studied online chemistry. Please, one of you raise your hand. I'm not making a poll because I'm confident I've done my job to my utmost abilities, and I hope you have understood. If not, I have given you GCR notes, which are exactly hand in gloves with the future and past O-level papers. So great guidance. I know that. Experience tells me. But still, I want to ask one of you, raise your hand, who thinks has understood more than he could have understood in a live class. The unique question I'm asking straightforwardly to, because it's the first time experience of online teaching and online. I don't know, you must have been taught somewhere otherwise, but it's my first experience of online teaching. So I want to ask one of you, if you raise hand, Abdullah Iqbal. Abdullah Iqbal, you give me the answer. Are you here? Yes, Abdullah Iqbal.
Yes,
Has
miss.
gone on. Haji Abdullah Iqbal, you give me very analytical answer. Have you learnt in these online classes more chemistry, or you could have learned more in life, that is in school, with from me? Just tell me the truth. No problem.
Miss, in either way, if you are attending a class attentively, we learn something. But the advantage of Miss, I prefer live classes more because Miss, as the students are face to face with the teacher can know that a student is attentive or not, and so personally, I prefer live classes better. But online is also good if you're being attentive, and in this way the teacher can also respond to you
Thank you so much, Iqbal,
simultaneously
Muhammad
while
Iqbal.
teaching.
Yes, yes, good. You have given a very mature answer to everyone, all teachers, that generally if we are attentive in the class as well as in online, we do get grasp knowledge from teachers who are working hard on us, and you know who are working very hard. You are smarter than us in that. But at the same time, what you have said, that in life the expressions are delayed, and there's a little fun, and you enjoy. And I mean, you come to know the importance of life taught or life teaching in its absence. But online, I think Muhammad Iqbal has said, Ms. Siddiqui, you have done a good job. Thank you. Iqbal, am I right? Raise your hand. I'm praising myself. Yes, Muhammad Iqbal, raise your hand. Have I done a good job? Iqbal has disappeared.
Yes,
Okay,
miss.
yes. Thank you. You have made me happy. No problem. Ali Said is also saying, most of you, I think, are not very unhappy. Afnan, may I ask you one question? What do you think that you have not learned enough, whatever I have taught you? Afnan, raise your hand. Afnan Salahuddin. Before I say
Yes, ma'am.
goodbye.
Yes,
बेटा आप बताओ कि क्या चीज आप समझते